I'm very honored to receive this award from the National Brain Tumor Society. It's always nice and it's always a compliment to get any kind of award, but I think an award like this is especially important because it comes from patients, their families, and their advocates. And in the end, that's why we enter medicine and that's why we work as hard as we do to serve that community. The National Brain Tumor Society was the first group to ever give me a research grant. I remembered it like it was yesterday, even though I was actually young back then. I remember sitting at the awards ceremony with my wife-to-be, thinking, I don't deserve this. I can't believe someone's actually going to give this very junior person money to do something. But it had an incredibly important role in my career because it legitimized me amongst people who were evaluating me, my mentors at that point, people who were in leadership, that I could actually go to them and say that there are people out there that think that I have the potential of making a difference. I'm very proud of what has happened here over the last 12 years in the neuro-oncology branch. When I came down to build this branch, in fact, there was no neuro-oncology branch, and within the National Cancer Institute, there really was no effort in brain tumors. So we really had to start from scratch. The kinds of things that we did that I'm very proud of are concrete things, such as we were one of the first groups to work with both preclinically and then ultimately conduct clinical trials with the drug Avastin, which I think most of us now know was one of the first drugs approved for recurrent glioblastoma in more than 30 years. And because of the great scientific freedom that we have here at the neuro-oncology branch, we were able to begin those studies earlier than may have been possible. I'm also proud of work we did with an initiative called the Glioma Molecular Diagnostic Initiative, GMDI, or Rembrandt. GMDI Rembrandt was one of the first attempts out of the National Cancer Institute to make a publicly available molecular genetic clinical database where investigators could begin to ask important questions. The fact that we have so many patients here and the fact that we have so many people committed to patients with brain tumors, what that did and does is that it keeps brain tumors on the forefront and keeps it in the vision to those in leadership positions here at the National Cancer Institute, at the National Institute of Health, and in the larger body in Washington and in the legislative branch for the people who are making decisions about funding and so forth. I can go back to when I first entered this field now almost 24, 25 years ago. And I remember first coming down to the National Cancer Institute for a meeting, and basically at that time, brain tumors were this somewhat this enigma. It was this small problem. No one really was paying a lot of attention to it, kind of at a national scene. There wasn't much funding for it. It was kind of seen as this rare tumor that we don't have much treatment for, and we've got bigger fish to fry relative to more common cancers like lung cancers and breast tumors. Well, now, thankfully, brain tumors, I think, are very high up on the priority list, as they should be. NBTS and other patient advocacy groups, as I mentioned before, became paramount and central in the establishment of the neuro-oncology branch, far from a small thing. And with all the things I talked about that I was proud of, our achievements in the neuro-oncology branch, that directly goes back to the patient advocacy groups, the NBTS, as being responsible for those things because the branch wouldn't have existed without them. And the other thing I can say is now, having been here at the NIH, having had a lot of experience in talking to legislators and being down on the Hill and having given talks, I can tell you that Washington does pay attention to to when people are speaking, and particularly when they're speaking with collective voices. People do listen here when the public speaks, and I think what the advocacy groups do is they allow that speak to be concentrated and to be unified, which just makes the message that much more important. What was achieved here was not achieved by me alone. What was achieved here was achieved by a multitude of people, both within the neuro-oncology branch itself and within the NIH. Also, well, just as important were the people, my colleagues in the extramural community at universities and other brain tumor centers, and critically important were the patients, the patient community, and the patient advocacy groups who really made this all possible. For the first time in more than 2 decades of doing this, I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I see that the train is moving forward, and we can and we will get there through our collective actions, patients advocates, researchers, physicians, private sector, government. It's all coming together, and I think the future is incredibly bright, and I'm incredibly hopeful that we will have an answer for this disease before I'm ready to hang it up.